Ignoring warning signs can allow evil to fester. Always listen to your instincts. Some houses don't want to be lived in.
The house on Marrow Lane had been vacant for years. When Thomas and Aisha Rivers bought it, they believed they'd found the perfect fixer-upper. Quiet neighborhood, fenced yard, hardwood floors, sure. It needed some love, but they had plans. Plans to start a family, to grow old together. They had no idea what lived inside the walls. The first time Aisha heard it, she was alone, unpacking boxes in the upstairs guest room. It was a faint murmur, soft and fleeting, like someone whispering her name from behind the drywall. Aisha! She froze, one hand still gripping a roll of tape. Hello? She called out, heart pounding. Silence. When Thomas returned from the hardware store, she told him what she'd heard. He laughed it off. Old houses creak, pipes groan. It's probably just the plumbing. But it wasn't the pipes. 2 weeks later, the whispering grew more frequent. Aisha would hear it in the shower, while folding laundry, even while brushing her teeth. Always muffled, always urgent. Sometimes it sounded like a plea. Help me. Other times, it mimicked her voice. Tom. She started sleeping with earbuds in, but even then, the voices leaked through the silence like poison through cracks. Thomas, skeptical at first, finally admitted he'd heard something too. It happened one night while he was working late in the garage. From the wall above his workbench, he heard scratching like tiny nails dragging along drywall. Then unmistakably a whisper. Don't trust her. He didn't tell Aisha. On the 4th week, they brought in a contractor to inspect the walls. An old man named Harris, grizzled, seasoned. He tapped, scanned, and scratched his head. Structure's sound. Nothing in the vents, no signs of vermin. Might just be airflow or echo through the beams, he said. Houses get old, you know. They talk. Aisha wasn't convinced. That night, she pressed a drinking glass against the wall and listened. This time, the voice was clear. Let me out. She dropped the glass. It shattered. Thomas began acting strange, forgetful, distant. He'd stare at the wall behind their bed for minutes at a time, as if in a trance. He barely ate, barely spoke. Aisha woke up one night to find him sleepwalking, fingers tracing invisible lines along the living room wall, mumbling something she couldn't understand. She called a priest the next morning. Father Malden was reluctant, but came anyway. As soon as he stepped inside, his face paled. This house, he said slowly, has a shadow in it. He performed a basic blessing, splashing holy water in each room. But when he reached the guest bedroom, he stopped. There's something wrong here, he whispered. Do you know who lived here before? They didn't know the house's history. After digging through public records and newspaper clippings at the library, Aisha uncovered the truth. 30 years ago, the house had belonged to a man named Alan Croft. A recluse neighbors remembered screams, foul smells, strange deliveries barrels, concrete, and tarps. One day, Alan vanished. Police found signs of a struggle inside the house, but no body, no arrest. Eventually, the property was sold off at auction. There was a final article, a whisper of a rumor. Walls never forget, the headline read. According to a former tenant, Alan had been obsessed with soundproofing, not to keep noise out, but to keep something in. 2 months later, they tried to move out. They packed their things, called a realtor. But the night before their planned departure, Aisha heard crying behind the wall, sobbing. Desperate and human, she couldn't sleep. At 3 a.m., she took a hammer and chisel and crept to the guest bedroom. Heart racing, she started tapping on the drywall. She heard it again. Here, please. Driven by some unshakable compulsion, she tore a hole into the wall. Beneath the insulation and wood, she found it. A door, old metal and bolted from the outside. A hidden room sealed behind the walls. The hidden room. She fetched Thomas. Together, they forced it open. The stench hit first rotted wood and old death. Inside was a small concrete chamber. No light, no windows. Chains on the floor, a chair with dried restraints and carved into the walls. Thousands of scratch marks, long, desperate gouges etched by human fingernails. At the far corner, half buried in dirt and dust, was a skeleton, curled in a fetal position. A woman next to her was a journal, warped with time and decay. Aisha opened it carefully. The entries were frantic, heartbreaking. The woman had been imprisoned by Alan, his wife, locked away for years. She wrote about screaming, pleading, clawing, about voices in the walls, about how after a while the house began whispering back. One final entry chilled her. I no longer know where I end, and the house begins. It remembers me, it keeps me, it will whisper until it finds another to join me. After opening the room, the whispering stopped, but Thomas began to deteriorate. He talked to empty spaces, repeated phrases from the journal, stared into mirrors as if they weren't reflecting him. One night, Aisha awoke to find him standing at the guest room wall, pressing his forehead against it, whispering, "She's lonely. She wants you next." Aisha tried to leave, but the doors wouldn't open. The windows wouldn't shatter. It was as if the house had sealed itself. And then came the laughter from inside the walls, twisted, echoing, and not human. Aisha made her choice. She lured Thomas to the hidden room, tears in her eyes, and locked the door behind him. He screamed and pounded, but not like her husband, like something else. She called the fire department, told them there had been a collapse in the guest room. The house was condemned, torn down a month later. But the workers reported something strange. No hidden room, no skeleton, just regular walls, empty insulation. And some of them said that while they tore down the drywall, they heard voices, laughing, crying, and begging. 6 months later, Aisha moved into a small apartment in the city, quiet, modern, and safe. But sometimes when the night is especially still, she hears it again, a whisper behind the wall. "Let me out.